Okay, hello and good morning from Canada. I'm Joanna and I will be guiding you for a 30-minute live student development class today. Um, Today we are going to dive into one of two parts. So the next time I'm on the channel doing a live like this, I'll do the second part. But this is an opportunity for us to delve into our yin asana and how to pick asana that are appropriate for the chakra system. And not only will I be sharing which asana are suitable for each chakra, but also how and what types of aromatherapy you might also bring into a yin chakra class that would serve each energy center. So I hope that makes sense. Um, Today we are going to focus on the lower three chakras. So the root chakra, Muladhara, the sacral chakra, Svadhisthana, and the solar plexus chakra, Manipura. So if you are new to the chakra system, if you are new to yin yoga, if you are new to the concept of inviting aromatherapy into your practices, I hope this session will be useful to you. Equally, if you are very familiar with the chakra system, you are already a yin yoga teacher, you already incorporate aromatherapy into your classes, then I hope there is some new little tidbits of information that you might wish to incorporate into your classes. Okay, so that being said, we have a little bit to get through in this next 30 minutes. It always flies by. So we're going to dive straight in. The way I'm kind of sequencing this session is that I will tell you a little bit about the chakra and about the aromatherapy element. And then I'm going to demonstrate some of the yin asana that would complement the chakra. And we'll do that for all three. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start at the very beginning, starting at the root. This chakra is located right at the base of the pelvis, right where the tailbone, the pubic bone sit. And this energy center is actually developed in the womb, and it's the first chakra that we are born with, and it is our energy center for stability and home and roots, security and survival. And this energy center is red in color. So if you're unfamiliar with the chakras, they are these kind of like vortexes, these wheels, these spinning wheels of energy, and they're located along the seven major ones are located along the central channel of the body, along the Sushumna Nadi, along the spinal column. And so this first chakra, this first wheel of energy that we developed is located right at the base of our pelvis. So when we think about this energy center and we think about what it represents, a lot of the time in a yin class, we would want to think about shapes that were very grounding, shapes that keep our pelvis in contact with the earth, shapes that allow us to connect pelvis to earth and connect our pelvis to the rest of our body. So the whole intention for this energy center is to ground and slow down. This energy center is governed by the earth element, so it is very dense and heavy. So when you're thinking about sequencing a yin class around this chakra particularly, then think about the relationship of the pelvis to the earth. In terms of aromatherapy, meaning essential oils that you could bring into the practice to complement the practice. There are many ways to do this. Sometimes it's nice to offer a little like a sample stick, like wooden stick, that you just put a little drop of the essential oil that you want to use in your class on the stick, and you give one to each student that wants it, and then they can decide as and when they want to inhale the aroma during the practice. That's one really nice way of incorporating it. Another way is to blend the essential oil into a mist, maybe with some distilled or filtered water, that you could spray either in the room before or after class if your students are comfortable with it, or you could spray it overhead if the students are comfortable with it. These are all things that you have to kind of navigate with your students. Some students are super sensitive to scent and they will not want to be exposed to scent in the room. So then that would eliminate you being able to use a mist, because obviously that scent is going to travel even if it's not being directly sprayed overhead of that student. So yeah, there are different ways to incorporate the essential oil. Sometimes if you do like a roll on, so you could do the essential oil mixed with a vegetable oil, like a coconut oil or jojoba oil or almond oil. You could mix the oil into a roller, and then you could put a little bit of that roller onto your students' hands and ask them to rub them and maybe take some big inhales, or like massage their shoulders with the oil. Again, though, you're going to have to be really careful that you are clear about the ingredients in your roll-ons in case you have any sensitivities or any allergies. So the incorporation of aromatherapy in your classes, I believe, should come once you've developed a relationship with these specific students. I wouldn't advise you going to a public class where you've never taught before and just offering these scents to the class, because you just don't know what you're dealing with, and it could become quite complicated if you're not careful. So if it's in an intimate setting and you know your students, then that might be a great place to start including oils. So in terms of the root chakra, the oils, the essential oils that I tend to gravitate towards if I'm using them in class would be the following two. I love to use lavender oil, because many of us know lavender oil has very calming properties. It's an adaptogenic essential oil. So on an emotional level, lavender helps to promote peace and love and awareness, and it works to calm strong emotions. It can help to release pent-up energy and allow for life force to flow more freely through the body. So lavender is a lovely one to use to complement the root, as is cedar wood or any of the kind of woodsy, earthy notes. So cedar wood I use because it's soft and woody, but it's warm. It also has calming properties and is used to help with centering and grounding the body. So perfect to use with the root. So in terms of asana for the root chakra, I'm just going to guide you through a couple of shapes that really work for this energy center. So the first one is Pashimotanasana, a seated forward fold. For a yin class, I'm going to invite a bolster under the knees, but you'll notice that the pelvis is connected to the floor. So we are building that relationship of stability and grounding from the pelvis into the earth, and the earth back up into the pelvis. Legs are in front of you. You could have a bolster under the knees or not. Feet are gently flexed. Hands are on the tops of the legs to begin, and the spine is long. As the body exhales, there's a hinge from the hips and then a melting forwards of the chest over the legs and beginning to look at that space between the shins. The hands can rest naturally to the legs or onto the floor, and then receiving lots of breath up and down the spine and into the backs of the legs, while consistently monitoring how the pelvis feels to the earth. If you were using a mist aromatherapy spray in practice, this would be a nice place to spray it on the back of the neck or around the shoulders so that the students could gently start to breathe in those aromas. And in yin postures, we're always asking the students to find that sweet spot of not too much, not too little. Where is their length and space being created in the body, but where is your body still feeling nice and grounded and restful? You don't want the body to be in a place of contraction or resistance. So if you've taken your body too deep into the pose too quickly, that might start to show up as a sensation, and then you'll need to back off a little bit. But equally, you don't want the body to be in a really passive position. You want to feel something. So always kind of offering those invitational questions to the students. How are you feeling? Can you feel your breath flowing through your body in this moment? Or do you feel like your body is tensing or resisting? Things like that. So here we are, Pashimotanasana, seated forward fold. Another great option as a yin posture for the root chakra would be Marichi. So offering one leg forwards and one knee bent, sole of that bent, sole of the foot of the bent leg on the mat. You can either have the foot next to the long straight leg or crossed over, depending on how the knees and hips and ankles feel. And then wrapping so I've got the right leg straight. So the right arm is wrapping around the left shin. The left fingers are behind you on the floor. So sitting nice and tall, long through the spine, shoulders dropping down the back, and inhaling the breath to begin. And then exhaling, begin to turn the pelvis all the way over to the left, and then followed by the torso, the chest, and the head. And I always encourage the students to make sure that the spiral begins at the base of the pelvis, not at the belly button. You want the entire spine incorporated into this twist so that the relationship from the pelvis all the way up the spine, all the way up the line of chakras is connected. You can ask your students to look behind them, or maybe bow the chin into the chest, might feel really good. Obviously, your students can decipher how much twist is enough for them. Keep asking your students to sit nice and tall in this pose, and keep hugging the bent knee towards the chest and lifting the chest up to the knee. And of course, you would offer this shape on both sides of the body. As a little counter pose to this shape, it's really nice as you release on the inhale breath to come through center. And then as you exhale, just place your hands over to the right side of the mat and bow the chin in just for a few moments to release that spiral. And then coming back to center, and you'd repeat that on the other side. Another offering for the root chakra would be butterfly pose. So you would bring your knees bent, soles of the feet together, and the knees wide. And for this pose, if there are a lot of knee or hip sensitivities in the class, then you would offer your blocks at any height under the knees or under the hips, so that the legs have something to rest against and feel supported. For this pose, you'll think about your contact of pelvis to the floor, and you'll sit nice and tall to begin. Hands can be on your lower shins. As you exhale, hinging forwards from the spine, keeping the spine long and lifting your chest up and over your toes. Now, these heels can be as close to you or as far away from you as is comfortable for your body. And checking in if you don't have the blocks under your hips or knees, that the knees are happy to go heavy on their own. This is butterfly pose. Again, another great asana for connecting root to earth. There are also lots of reclined asana that you could do in a yin class if your entire class was root chakra based. There's lots of things you can do on the floor, such as thread the needle, or one knee to chest pose and the other leg extended, or supported bridge pose where you place a prop underneath the sacrum, underneath the pelvis. So there are many ways to keep pelvis to earth and build a sequence around the root chakra. Okay, so we're going to have to move on because I want to get through these bottom three chakras today. But hopefully those are a few ideas to kind of get your creative juices flowing. And maybe you can build an entire practice solely focusing on the root. So our next chakra is Svadhisthana, and Svadhisthana is the second chakra, and this one is located between the pubic bone and the belly button. So it's that space of the lower abdomen. And this chakra is orange in color, and it is the home of our creativity, our fertility, our reproduction, our sexuality, our flow and freedom. And it's governed by the water element appropriately. So when we think about this area of the body, it's our creative juices, it's our like sexual liberation, it's freedom, it's a space really where we can ignite. So a great way to tap into this area is through some more fluid style movements, which is a little tricky in a yin class. However, because this area is low in the body, it's lower abdomen, another great way to support this chakra is through shapes that help to open the hips, help to open the torso, so maybe some gentle supported back bends might feel good, or any shapes that help with digestion would be good in your yin practice. In terms of aromatherapy, oils that are wonderful to complement this chakra might be oils such as bergamot. So bergamot is a very sweet, lively, citrusy oil, and it's quite invigorating and can encourage the release of repressed emotions. Not only is it uplifting, it's very gently relaxing, and it can help to disperse stagnant energy and release stress and tension, because often we are a little angst, a little tight, a little contracted in the lower belly. And this isn't helping us have that free flowing energy through our chakra system. Another oil that's lovely to use to complement the sacral chakra would be Clary Sage. This is a warm, musky, slightly spicy oil, and it's both strengthening and relaxing. It's known for its emotionally uplifting effect. It can promote clarity, and it's especially useful during emotional times. So those are the oils I would recommend. And again, like the offerings I suggested earlier, maybe it's on a smelling stick that you offer these oils. Maybe it's in a mist form in the room or overhead. Maybe it's in a roll-on that you ask your students to roll onto their, maybe roll and massage onto their lower belly if that feels good. But again, using oils and using any carrier oils, you will need full permission from your students, and you'll have to be very transparent about what you're offering so that students can make safe choices for themselves as to whether they want to receive that or not. In terms of asana, there's a few shapes that come to mind that would definitely be useful to help drop into that space. So let's begin with some of those. So the first one I'm going to suggest would be a pose I call lizard pose or dragon pose. So this is where you would take your, let's start with the right leg. So you take your right leg behind you, maybe lift the right leg up to the same height as the right hip, and then bend the right knee into the chest and lightly step the right foot between your hands. Shuffle that right foot as wide as your mat, and maybe keep your right toes facing forwards, or maybe turn your right toes off the mat, depending on how turned in or turned out your hips naturally are. I'm going to turn my toes off the mat slightly because that feels better in my hips. And then your hands are inside your right foot. You can be on your fingertips, you can have flat hands to the floor, or you could put your hands to blocks. Another option, if you have knee sensitivity, is to place a cushion or a roll blanket under your left knee. From here, we're bringing the entire pelvis more forwards and down. So we're creating more length in the front of our left hip and maybe a little more opening into the outer right hip and thigh. If you encourage your students to sit up a little more, so they're lifting through their chin, chest, and moving their shoulders down their back, then they might start to receive a lovely stretch into the front lines of their torso, which will definitely serve the lower abdomen and the sacral chakra. From here, there are many things you could do. You could invite your students to stay here. You could invite your students to lower down onto their forearms. So maybe they put their props in front of them in a stacked formation for their forearms. Maybe they put their forearms on the floor, maybe their forehead to a block. A few other options would be to play with this opening. So you could invite your students to lift their right toes off the floor if that feels available. Maybe roll to the outer edge of that right foot if that's available, so the right knee goes a bit wider. They could turn their chest to the right and roll their shoulders down their back, maybe press their right hand into their inner right thigh. Again, this may help to deepen the hip opener, but also create more space and length around the lower belly. Another option is to extend your right arm behind you, bend the left knee, and seeing if your left foot and your right hand can find one another, hugging heel to glute. Again, this can create a lovely hip flexor stretch in this left leg and maybe add a bit more space into the lower belly. So that is lizard pose. It's a deep hip opener. Of course, as before, you would offer these shapes on both sides if they are part of your practice for that day. Another option of a hip opener would be pigeon pose. So I'll do this one on the left side for a little bit of balance. So I'm going to slide the left knee behind the left wrist and wiggle the left heel slightly over to the right side of the mat. From here, extending the right leg all the way down the mat, lowering the pelvis back to the floor. If the pelvis doesn't touch the floor, maybe you put a block underneath that left hip for a bit of extra support. Hands can be flat on the floor or again up on your fingertips. Length through the front of the torso for that space that we're looking for. Shoulders down the back. Your front foot can be flexed to help with supporting and protecting the left knee. And that left heel can be as close or as far away from the midline as is comfortable. Some of you might start to make a 90-degree angle with that front leg, getting the left shin parallel with the front edge of the mat if that's available. For me today, this is my more sensitive side of the body, so my left heel is very close to my midline, and that feels appropriate. Again, you could stay upright, or you might invite your students to fold forwards. Again, they could put their forearms onto lots of props. They could put their forehead onto a block and have their forearms to the floor, finding what is an appropriate amount of length and stretch and space being created in the hip, while also serving the knees, the ankles, the lower back, never in pain. So here is Pigeon Pose. Now, if Pigeon Pose is not for some of your students, then another option for them would be Deer Pose. So that would involve that front leg, so the left leg still in front, left knee in front, left heel in front, but you'll see the back leg now is bent. You might put a cushion under that back knee if it's on the wood floor or it's not feeling comfortable. The focus is still on this left side, still into the left hip. And again, your students could sit upright here, or your students could lean forwards here. Another option in these folds forward would be to add in a diagonal line stretch that might help some of your students get deeper into the pose. And for some students, you might find that this makes it more accessible for them. So you're going to walk your hands slightly over to the left and fold the chest over that left thigh. So that's another thing to play with, which also adds a little massage into the digestive system as you fold your torso over thigh. Okay, and that is just a handful of options for yin postures for the sacral chakra. A few other suggestions would be shapes like frog pose or butterfly pose, where you're widening the knees and creating space in the hips. Another shape would be knee to chest pose to help with massaging the digestive system. Sufi grind is a nice shape to add fluidity into the hips, lower back, and lower belly. And I just checked the time, and we don't have enough time today to get into the solar plexus. But like I said, I'm going to do part 2 and maybe a part 3 to this so that we can definitely dive into all of the chakras. I hope this was handy, and I hope that you can gain some inspiration and creativity from this. It's a great way to build classes. You could have a full class on the root chakra, full class on the sacral. Before you know it, you've got a 7-week series to share with your students if you move through these 7 chakras in order. And students love classes that are themed like this, and it keeps them coming back to their mat. It keeps you engaged and inspired as a teacher. And like I said, the aromatherapy element is just an option, and I highly recommend it if your students are open to it and it works in your space. It kind of creates that extra layer, that sensory layer. It creates a kind of spa-like experience for your students. So yeah, if you have any questions about what we did today, so root and sacral chakras, please leave me a comment and I will get back to you. If you have any questions about incorporating aromatherapy in your classes, also let me know. And yeah, I'll see you on the channel again soon for a part 2, where we will start to move a little higher up the chakra system. Okay, until then, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day and see you soon.